Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for being with us. My name is Brian Ziegler. I'm one of the owners of Method Learning. Just wanted to say that we're really excited to have everybody on tonight. We've got a really good-sized crowd, so that's really exciting. And these sessions have really been building some serious momentum. So if you've been on before for some of our previous webinars, welcome back. And if this is your first time, welcome. And we hope to see you again on many of our future ones as well. So please definitely stay in touch and keep an eye out for future sessions like this. We hope that you've been enjoying your summer, and we're really excited to be getting geared up for the new school year. I'm sure everyone has a lot going on and in their personal lives and want to enjoy the last few days and weeks of summer. So we know that anyone who's made it to this session as a priority is really serious about their college journey. So we respect that, and we hope that you find the information that we're about to present incredibly valuable to you. Obviously, there's a lot to cover and a lot goes into this process. Method Learning and our college advising division is uniquely positioned to help with all aspects of this process and in any capacity that you need. So the good news here is that this is a great place to start, and we're really excited to start that journey with you. Just a couple housekeeping notes, promotional items real quickly before we get started and introduce our presenter. In the handout section in the user interface, so in your GoToWebinar dashboard over there on the side of your screen, you'll see there's a handouts section, and there's 4 documents in there, including the PowerPoint slides. So I highly recommend that you download those at some point during the session today, and that way you'll have them. You'll also receive an email in a few hours after the webinar is over that'll include a recording of the session. So we are recording it. You can watch it again later. You can also share it with anybody that might also benefit from this information. So if you got friends or family who are going to be going through this process over here in the next year or two, certainly kind of get them in the loop. It really helps us for you to be able to share that information and get more people on these things. In the email that's to follow, you'll also get 2 different links. One of the links is going to be to take you to a survey where you can provide some feedback about the session. Please take a few minutes to fill that out. It doesn't take very long. The information that we receive from that is really, really valuable. It helps us to craft the future sessions that we're going to have, come up with ideas for providing things that people need in terms of topics and things like that, and helps us really create and do this stuff in a relevant and useful way. And then as a thank you for filling out that survey, you're going to be entered into a drawing to win an all-access account on our Methodize platform. If you already use Methodize, which some of you might for your SAT and ACT prep, and you are one of the winners, we're going to select 3 people. If you are one of the winners and you already have an account, we'll just add all the additional courses to your account, and those courses include financial literacy, academic success, pre-algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2, geometry, and our College Unmazed college advising program as well. We're going to shut down that drawing on Friday, August 11th. So please make sure to take a few minutes and do that prior to Friday so that you can be entered into the into the drawing for that. The other link that's going to be included is one to a sign up page for our college advising starter pack, which you may have already seen some advertising for that, along with a promotional code for 50% off the price. And it's the starter pack includes a number of incredibly valuable college planning tools, as well as enrollment in live group classes, which are going to be starting in a few weeks. And Dr. Stirk will talk a little bit more about that, about the particulars in a few minutes, and provide a QR code as well to that link. So if you're following along tonight, make sure you have your phone ready to take a picture of a QR code. If you're interested in that, it's going to be coming up in a few minutes. So just have that handy. And as always, nothing helps us as much as word of mouth advertising and referrals. So if you find tonight helpful, please share with friends and family who also may benefit from these sessions. During the session, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the user dashboard. There's a question section. You can go ahead and type it in there. We're going to try to answer as many questions on the fly as we can. If we don't get to all of them, we'll usually have time to kind of round things up at the end with a question and answer session. So, and also please sit tight. If you've asked something, we're probably going to cover most of the stuff that gets asked during the session. So just be mindful of that if you don't get an answer right away, you might get it at some point along the way. And if not, we'll also do our best to follow up afterwards with you directly and try to get you an answer if it's something that we can't cover during the session. And if there's something that is still burning that you really need to know, you can always email us at collegeadvisor@methodlearning.com, and we'll do our best to get back to you really quickly about that too. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our Director of College Advising, Dr. Amanda Stirk. Dr. Stirk's an expert in her field and published author with over 20 years experience on all sides of the college admissions process. She's the creator of College Unmazed guidebook and tools that have helped thousands of students navigate the college admissions process. And she brings a wealth of knowledge and experience. She's eager to work with students and help them along their journey. So Amanda, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for that warm introduction. Thank you everyone for spending your Tuesday night. I know it's a busy time of year. You know, you're coming out of summer, starting to think about school starting, which is, you know, when we kind of talked about what our topic would be tonight, I really wanted to set the stage for all of you about how can we use our coming up school year to really develop the skills and the readiness things that we need to be college and career ready. So we're really excited that you're here, and we are going to be talking about how to unlock your college journey and what are the 3 Ds to developing your unique U factor. So I like to get to know my audience here a little bit. So I'm going to do a quick little poll. So I am curious who is here right now. So the poll just came up, and I'm curious, are you a student? Are you a parent? Are you an educator or another? I don't know, maybe you're here for supporting somebody. So if you could just answer that question for me, that would be fantastic. I'm seeing students are winning out. That's fantastic. Awesome. So it looks about 2/3 students, about 1/3 parents. Fantastic. And maybe some of you are sitting next to each other as well. That's great. So let me ask one more question. Thank you. And the other question is, what grade are you in? So obviously, if you're a parent, what grade is your student in that you're sort of representing? If you are a current student, what grade are you in? Again, just like to kind of see where my demographics are, so that way when I'm answering questions, I know kind of who to talk to. So it looks like quite a bit more 12th graders than I thought. That's fantastic. Well, this will actually help you. One of the things is about how to demonstrate your sort of U factor, especially in your resume, in your college admission documents, your essays, stuff like that. And then we also have quite a few 10th graders, and then looks like 11th graders are winning the race today. So fantastic. So a lot of students here, and majority is 11th and 12th graders. So fantastic. Really excited for you to be here. And Brian already sort of mentioned who I am. I've been here, the Director of College and Career Advising here for Method for several months, but I have been doing this field for a very long time. I've been in competitive college admissions, some of the #1 high schools throughout internationally and in the United States, wrote the book on college admissions, and just love what I do. More importantly, one, talking with all of you, but also working directly with parents and students, making sure that they understand all the opportunities that are really in front of you and how to sort of take advantage of all of those things. And these are just some pictures of some former students. They make me smile. University of Chicago, we have Rice, we have Williams College, UF, University of Michigan. So this is why I do the work that I do, and we all do here at Method, is because we want your success as part of our success as well. So Brian had mentioned we do have some classes coming up. I will submit, we do have senior classes. These are primarily for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, but we are doing senior classes as well. That's going to be more focused on your resume, your essay, your applications, and so I will get that into the downloads here in a little bit. These are, again, are more 9th through 11th grade. It's building your skills. How do I use my high school experience? And this is going to be the offer that we're going to be sharing with you tonight, because you guys are valued Method members. We're actually giving you 50% off for all of our live classes, and to connect in with our college advising course that we have. So I hope you take advantage of that, because that is such a deal for under $250. live classes, tons of resources, and lots of materials to really get you exactly where you want to be. So, all right, let's dive into it. And don't forget, if you have a question, I have my chat up. I am watching it as I go. So feel free to ask any questions along the way. I want to make sure that I am answering what you need, right? All right, so some things to think about, right? I always like in the college admissions discussions to kind of put on what's going on, right? Because we need to understand sort of what our end game is, and we sort of work backwards by design. Because if we kind of know where we want to go, what we want to major in, what we want to do, we need to think about where we need to start and make sure that we can reach our goals and are successful in doing so. So these are some this year's statistics. I added just 4 kind of schools on here that a lot of my students are considering. We have Florida State Universities on here, UMass Amherst, University of Michigan, and UPenn is on here. And what we're seeing across the United States is an increase in application numbers. And, you know, when we look at, you know, FSU is a flagship school down here in Florida, overall, they had almost 67,000 applications, and 50,000 had actually were denied. So what used to be anywhere from like a 40% acceptance rate is you're now getting down to almost a 20% acceptance rate. UMass Amherst is not as competitive. You can see there they had approximately 44,000 applications with about 29,000 accepted. University of Michigan, the reason I put Michigan on here, it's really interesting. They had about 70,000 denials. One of the things that they did quite a bit to a lot of really high achieving students is they put them on, they would move them from early decision to regular decision to a lot of kids were waitlisted. And what's interesting, 21,000 students were offered a wait list. And what was interesting, you know, kids would come in and be like, oh, I got waitlisted, I'm waiting for University of Michigan. But in the end, only 77 students actually got off the wait list. And then you can see UPenn there, where they had almost 56,000 applications and only 35 were actually admitted. So when we're looking at these numbers, it's a little shocking, and it's kind of, I want you definitely to be in the green versus the blue. And so why is the numbers increasing so much? Well, one of it is because applications, well, it seems to be getting harder, because if you're a parent like me, we did the old pen and paper and we sent it in the mail and we waited a few weeks, and, you know, then we got our decision in the mail. And because that, you know, we didn't have computers back then. So now with the advent of the Common App, where, and last year there was about 841 colleges and universities on the Common application. This year we're looking at over 1,000. So with one application, you can apply to up to 1,000 schools. Now you would have to pay for all of those applications, but we are seeing an increase of volume to students applying to more universities because of the click of that button. So you can see on the left-hand side there, it says there was a 30% increase in volume of applications. So if you just think, if one student just moves, you know, adds 1 or 2 more applications, you go from about 5.5 million applications to over 7 million. So really about 6 applications per student. So that means some students are applying to 15, 20 schools, and some are just applying to 3, 4 schools. Over 1.2 million students applied through the Common App. What's interesting is 62% of students did apply to colleges that had acceptance rates of over 50% or more. So I think that is really interesting, because not all students are applying only to the highly selective schools. So while it feels that way sometimes, we have a lot of students that are applying to a lot of different types of schools to get the best opportunities for them. Another thing that's really interesting that we saw in this last admission cycle is we're seeing a huge increase of early action, early decision opportunities. So what kind of used to be really sort of kept for the students that were really eager, really ready, and ready to go, sort of that November 1 versus a January 1, that we're seeing more and more students applying earlier than ever before. They're trying to get in through those early action, early decisions, or even priority. So if you look at 2 universities I put down there, we got Barnard and Boston College, 62% of students for their whole entire class came in through the early admit program. Same with Boston College, over 50% of their entire class actually came in through the early admit program. And so if, you know, the seniors that are out here right now, if you're thinking about, oh, where am I at with my applications, do know that for some of these schools, over half of their students are coming in through that sort of November 1 admission. So as those numbers start looking bigger, they're actually getting smaller, and your pool of students is actually very small who you're competing with. So I just think that gives us some kind of context. So in actuality, yes, numbers are increasing. More students are applying to more universities. And so colleges are really benefiting from that. They are able to really pick a diverse group of students to make up their class. And so they're looking for athletes, and they're looking for people in their marching band, and they're looking for people that are going to be their cheerleaders, and they're looking for people that are going to be in their Model United Nations programs. And so they're really looking at what type of student fits me best here at this college and really creates that class of students. And so I think it is important always, especially since COVID, right? Things have been just sort of wonky with test optional, and our college is really test optional. So all those things are really difficult for a lot of families to kind of navigate through and to say, if I want to put my best foot forward, what does that look like, and how do I do that? So now more than ever, families are tapping into people like me and, you know, college advisors, because they need help sort of navigating that. And we need help just understanding, how do I really use all of my documents to put my best foot forward? So let's kind of talk about some things and how we can actually build what we call the U factor. So the U factor is really what makes yourself really unique. And so one of the things to also note, though, is some of the things that colleges are still looking for in an applicant. Again, we want to kind of know what the end looks like, and we're going to sort of build backwards. So we're making sure that we're covering and checking off all the boxes. So they asked, and this was in 2019, so I know this data is a little bit old. I did hear that in the next month, they are going to release this report again. They have not released it since 2019. So I do think it will change. And so it'll be interesting, and probably the next time on this webinar, hopefully I will be able to share the new data and information. But they asked colleges all over the United States, what are some of the most important things that you're looking for in an applicant? The very number one thing, and it's been the same pretty much for 10, 15 years, is they really do care about your GPA. At the end of the day, what was your GPA? How did you do in all of your coursework? And more specifically, how did you do in those college preparatory courses? That could be dual enrollment, could be an IB program, an Cambridge ACE program, AP, whatever you're doing. They want to make sure that you are taking advantage and are doing well in those college prep courses, because those are going to be the most indicative to how you're going to be your first year of college. And so that's where that grades in college prep courses and that strength of curriculum. Now, if you're in a rural school and maybe you only have access to 4 or 5 AP classes, or if you're in a large school that has the whole gamut and has 20 of them, plus the AP capstone and everything else, they do compare you based on what's available to you. So they're not going to penalize you if your school has one thing and another school has another. They will want to know, did you do everything that you could to really curate your U factor? And then they're also still looking at test scores. So while some still stay test optional, the reality is, and I was just working with a student today, and I was showing her her schools, and she was like, okay, I'm test optional. One of her #1 school, 70% of students who got accepted and enrolled in that university all came in on test scores. So they're saying, yes, we're test optional, but and I asked her, I said, do you want to have a 7 out of 10 chance, or do you want a 3 out of 10 chance, right, of getting admission? So while they say test optional, that's really not as accurate. They use it for when it really suits them. And then they look at the other things. They look at your essay, they look at something called student demonstrated interest. That's, do you want to go here? Have you actually engaged with us? And if I give you that seat, what's the likelihood of you coming? They also look at your letters of recommendation, they look at your class rank, and they also look at your extracurricular activities. Even more important, one of the things that they do look at is something called your academic, which we just talked about, and what we also call your non-academic factors. So the things that you do in school on an everyday basis, your math, your science, your English, foreign language, all the social studies. I think I got them all. And then even your electives, right? Are you a theater kid? Are you a band kid? Are you an art kid? Are you a business kid? Are you a STEM kid? Like, what are you, right? So they're looking at that academic factor, but they're also looking at what we call non-academic factors. So what's included in non-academic? Well, things like your extracurriculars are really important. Do you have a talent or an ability that, again, are you going to be the cheerleader on their team? Are you going to be a band member? Are you going to be in the orchestra? What do you have that you can bring that's sort of unique to the college? Some have interviews, right? So that's really showcasing your knowledge of the college and how you connect with alumni and how you're going to tap into all the resources of the college. They're also looking at your character, personal qualities, right? Are you a leader? Do you self-advocate for yourself? Do you really create and develop and think outside the box? And you can do that through your volunteer work, your work experience. There's that level of applicant interest. The italicized at the bottom, those are things that you really can't change about yourself. If you're a first generation kid and your parents did not go to college, you can't really change that. That's just something that, is. And the reason I bolded alumni and racial and ethnic status is right now because of the Supreme Court. That's changing, right? They're saying that we cannot use race within college admissions, but college admissions, on the other hand, is saying, well, tell us how that affects you. Use that in your essay, talk about it, but we just can't use it as a deciding factor. But they do look at other things: geographical residence, state residency, religious affiliation. So like if you're choosing a Catholic school or a Christian school, do you have that same sort of belief system as they do? And I actually did a webinar and I dove much deeper into this. You can actually find a college and how they rank each one of these factors: your academic factor, your non-academic factor, and it's something called the common data set. It's one of the things that I teach all of my kids and I help them do it. It's how to look it up and how to sort of analyze each of these. So when you're doing your application, you're really sort of checking off all the boxes to make sure that it's as comprehensive as possible. So in the common data set, and you can just look up basically any college name and Google it, right? And put common data set and try to look for the newest one. Either 2022, 2023 would be the newest, or some are still a little old, 2021, 2022. And you're going to go under the section called C7. So that's a little trick. So I suggest you look that up. And if you want to find out more actually on that webinar, I do show you how to do that and look that up to see how do schools actually use all of these academic, non-academic factors. So now we know more students are applying than ever before. We know that students are still applying to less selective schools, but still applying to highly selective schools. There's still the gamut of schools that they're applying to. And we now have a little bit better understanding of kind of what colleges are looking for. And we know to sort of kind of crack the code a little bit, we can use the common data set, C7, to actually go in and see how each school ranks each of these factors in looking at our application. So what do you need to know right now? Well, we need to understand how we create our sort of uniqueness. I call it the U factor. So when we wrote College Unmazed, we talk about 4 factors. We talk about your U factor, your academic factor, your career factor, and the 4th one's your money factor, because we want you to have a good understanding of how you're going to pay for college and what you need to do to make sure to reduce that cost if that's important to you and your family. So we're going to really kind of dive into the 3 Ds. So it's discover, develop, and very importantly, especially for all you seniors, is how do I demonstrate this? How do I actually talk about it so I can make sure that everything I do is really organized and exemplified within the space that I have. I was working with one of my students just not too long before this webinar started and showing her the Common App. We've been working on the resume, we've been doing the demonstrate aspect, and I said, okay, now we're going to take all this great stuff you're going to do and we're going to put into 150 characters. That's the only size that they give you on the Common App is 150 characters. So your word choice, your sort of, your verbs and your adjectives are even more important than ever before, because sometimes the space is really small and so you have to get kind of creative. So what do we need to do? Well, in Discover, we need to really understand, starting as early as freshman year, sophomore year. If you're a junior, you're kind of already, this is a big year for juniors. For seniors, you're getting a little past the Discover stage. You might do a little bit more in college, but you need to understand and discover what's most important to you. What are your interests? What are your passions? And how can you integrate that into a particular career pathway, right? Can you get paid for the things that you love to do? And, it's interesting, I was talking with one of my students and, dad says, oh, this kid's going to be a doctor. And I look at their resume and I'm like, every activity you've done has nothing to do with being a doctor. Everything is about business and statistics and, he loves like stocks and everything else. And so you start looking at it and I said, your interests are showing this and your academics are showing this, but your career pathway is way over here. You didn't even take an advanced rigorous like biology or chemistry class. So let's talk about that, right? Is there a disconnect? Because if it's something you want to do, I would expect, and admissions would expect, that you are exploring that. You're discovering who you are, what you want to do. I won't say what my age is, and I'm still discovering what I want to do, right? But they should, when you start working on this, you really should be looking at what your strengths are and really adhering to those strengths. Also, you need time to develop your strengths. So what's so important is in the Common App, and again, we're thinking of kind of the outcome here. One of the questions it asks on every single activity is how many hours per week and weeks per year do you do this activity, and then what grade levels. So they're really looking for your time intensity and your longevity. Like there's going to be activities where you are spending hours a week, especially if you're in sports or if you're in like a key club or some of these activities where they're very time intensive, and you've been doing it since you're in 6th grade. Before we got on, Brian and I were talking about our kids, and I was saying my daughters are black belts in karate, and they've been doing it since they were about this big, and now they're going all the way through high school. That's longevity and that's intensity, right? They have committed themselves to that sport and to that activity, and they've done a lot of volunteer and activities, and colleges really like to see that because they like that dedication. They like that sort of commitment to it. Now, there are some programs like NHS, National Honor Society, is a great organization. Some are extremely active, and some it's, I have a GPA, I was invited to come, that's all I needed to do. And so having that as an honors is fantastic, but it might not be a great activity. One of the ones I like to use, I live here in Southwest Florida, and beach cleanup. We had a Hurricane Ian a few months ago, and beach cleanup is something that we do because we believe in our oceans and our beaches, and that's a good thing to do. But if you think that's really going to show longevity and intensity, it's not. It's a great activity and you should do it, but it's not going to be something that you will probably be writing down on an application. And then easy or hard, that's kind of an interesting one. Part of it is a lot of times when you're at school, you can pick a lot of the easy things to do. It doesn't take much effort. You can just stay after school and you do a club and you do it once a week, and that's kind of easy. There's a lot of other activities that are kind of hard. So like, what if you started a club, or what if you really did like a night class, or you went to, I had a student a few years ago that she really believed in teen mental health, and her mother had died, and the support group had really been important for her. So she actually created a teen grief support group, and how that at night, that's a lot harder than sometimes doing tutoring of middle school students. They're not all equal. Not all school or outside of school activities are the same. You know, doing it during school, or during the weekends, or during summer. We all pay attention to that, right? So those are things. Is it something easy that you kind of just added on, or is it something that you really committed to and you put time and effort into it? And then also, is that skill teaching you personal and career skills, right? So I'll go back to the student that said, oh, I think maybe I'll be a doctor, but everything he was doing was business. So what's the skill needed for somebody going into business, and what's the skills needed for somebody going into, like, say, the medical field, right? And patient care, and, you know, the courses are going to be very, very different. And so you need to also think about, if I'm doing this activity, is it building who I want to be, both personally, and is it building who I want to be in the future and my potential career? And those skills are really so important. Those are things that colleges are always looking for, those leadership skills, to collaborate. They're looking for time management. They're looking for really the ability to adapt and be flexible, and really jump in and to advocate for yourself and for others. And so demonstrating those skills in your application is really critical. So then that's where the demonstrate piece comes in, is that you really need to have an understanding of, what does my resume say, what does my essay say, and what do my letters of recommendation say? And with essay, I'm going to put supplemental essays in there as well. One of the problems that I see with a lot of students is, one, they wait too late to start these documents. Now, you're not going to, if you're a 10th grader or 11th grader, you don't need to start your college essay today, but you should have an up-to-date resume always, because you never know when opportunities are going to arise. And so one of the things that I do within my classes is to give you the actual resume template that you're building for your common application. So that way, we're always assessing, we're reviewing, does this say what I want it to say? And if it doesn't, what do we need to do to adapt and to change it, so we can make sure that we are kind of going through this funnel, right? Because you're discovering everything's going great, you're building some skills, and now I really need to showcase those skills. So if you're kind of doing something way off here, I'd be curious to why. Why are you doing that? Not saying that could be a passion, it could be an interest. It doesn't always have to be career focused. If you believe in the art program but want to be a doctor, that's okay, that's great. And we need people that have differences. So it doesn't always have to be career focused, but it should be, why are you doing that activity? I do see a question, I think. Okay, so thank you. Sorry, Frank. Good to see you. Some people are just saying that they are hanging out. So thank you. And remember, if you do have any questions, I am definitely happy to answer those as we get going. So here's some 2 areas of focus. So we're going to talk a little bit more about your academics and your extracurriculars. So what are some things that I can focus on right now? Again, if I'm assessing my documents, I'm looking at where I'm at. So the first thing to really pay attention on the academic side is what courses are available to you. Now, I know it's hard. It's my daughter, she's going into freshman year, and she just came home with her schedule today, and she's super excited, and she's texting friends about her schedule. And a lot of times when you have a small school, you know, even though the counselors try to sort of stack the APs and the more rigorous courses, sometimes it's hard and you might not get the class that you want, or the teacher left, or whatever that. So what's available to you? And don't limit yourself just by classes that are at your high school. There are a plethora of courses out there that you can tap into today that if your school doesn't have it, that you can. One of my favorite things that I love to use is a program called Coursera. It's called a MOOC. A MOOC is a massive open online course. And so Coursera has partnered with I think 2,000 universities and businesses all over the world, and they offer really cool college level courses. And it's really cheap. I think it's $40 a month or something like that. And you can get certificates, you can get college credit, you can do projects, but pretty much any topic that you want to do. If you're interested in aerospace or public health or marketing or sports management, they have a class for that. So don't let your school and your schedule limit your knowledge. And more than that, you can also look at things like, you know, getting a mentor, reaching out to your local community college or your state university and see if maybe you can take some courses through them, or maybe you can even do a research project with them. There are tons of opportunities, both in school, but definitely out of school as well. So you really want to make sure as you're picking rigorous courses that you are paying attention to, remember, grades in all courses and grades in your rigorous courses, your college level courses, are the two most important things that colleges are looking for. So you do want to pick courses that you are going to be successful in and to showcase. And I get the question a lot, you know, what if I took I'm not great at math, and so I take the AP Calc class versus the statistics class, or which class should I take? And it really depends on your overall schedule and what you're doing. But if you're going into it thinking I'm going to get a C, it's better to maybe take an honors level and focus on other APs or other courses where you are going to be better suited for your career major, what you're doing, and so forth. You also want to make sure, again, we talked about career focus. So if you're an engineering student and you're interested in mechanical engineering, I better see some computer classes and maybe see some physics classes and see that advanced mathematics. If you're barely getting through Algebra 2, that's going to be a red flag for me on the admissions side that maybe you're not quite ready for that major, right? And maybe you might be doing something else. Or again, using my student as a med student, if I don't see biology and chemistry and anatomy and nutrition or whatever classes, I might be paused if they say, oh, I really want to be a doctor, but I didn't take any courses that were actually career and major focused, would give me a little red flag of why did you not, especially if you had it available to you. So again, looking for what's in your school, what's outside your school, and what's available. Now with the internet and, you know, AI and ChatGPT, there is so much information out there. You can really curate whatever type of academic plan that you are looking for. On the same token, on the extracurricular side, don't let it just be at your school. There are so many opportunities within the community, within your state, even nationwide, that you can tap into people or experts that are doing the work that you want to do. So really look at what are you passionate about, what are your interests, again, what's your career focus, adhering to the longevity and sort of that intensity, right? What are some opportunities I could be a leader in? You know, where can I really make this club or this activity my own, or I could create it? That's really critical. And then again, the easy versus hard. Is it something that you really just kind of do and it doesn't really take much effort, or is it something that you really put time and effort into it? So I'll give you an example. I had a student a few years ago, and I worked with her for actually 4 years. She was really unique. She was one of the top junior dog handlers of Westminster. So you know, the little dog show, and they go around and they do that. And she worked for this lady, and she traveled all over the nation. I mean, literally hundreds and thousands of hours doing dog shows and the behind the scenes. And she was such a cool kid. So her entire high school career was online. So she was able to pick and choose her classes and win. And so we had to pay attention to internet, and she couldn't do like a 2 o'clock class. She had to do more sort of a self-study. But anyway, she really wanted to be a lawyer. And the problem is she was homeschooled. She wasn't really able to be in a traditional school environment. And so we looked at what skills does she need to be a lawyer. And one of the big things that pre-law programs are looking for is your writing skills. You do a lot of writing, and with your LSAT and everything else. And so one of the things we looked at, what is she passionate about? She loves to write. So what we came up with is she actually wrote a children's book based on her experience in the dog show. And her dog, I forget what the dog's name was. I'll just say Toby, for example. So Toby, so it was all this little book was about Toby. And then we contacted local schools within the area, and she came and she presented her book, and sometimes she sold it at libraries, and then she went in, and so she started a business on top of it. She went in and did her community service hours. She had this great opportunity. She got written up in the newspaper. So all of a sudden, we took one thing that really she was passionate about, she loved doing, and we expanded on it. But it wasn't something that it didn't have to be in super intensive or crazy amount of time. And she had some phenomenal scholarships and opportunities because of her sort of unique you factor that she was able to contribute. So in your academics, and I've kind of mentioned some of these already, and don't forget, if you have questions, let me know. A lot of times you guys are always so interested, and so the questions always come towards the end. So I talked already about MOOCs, that's in the yellow one. So MOOCs are the massive open online courses. There's Coursera, there's Khan Academy, FutureLearn, Udacity, Cadenza, Udemy, some really great ones. All of them have their strengths and benefits to them, but that's definitely one that I think they're fantastic, especially if you still have another few weeks before summer starts. You could easily get one in. I'm a strong believer in dual enrollment. I think there's lots of opportunities. They just have more courses than a traditional high school does. So if there is an ability to maybe take that advanced math or that advanced science, or even a special type of course in your potential major, that's phenomenal. Your credit by examination programs, AP, IB, A's, again, showing that rigor. And one that I know it's really more important in the South. I know here in Florida, Texas, California, we have a lot of industry certifications that students can get, which are more like career and technical programs. I was helping, there are 2 twins, and they were getting into med school. This was right during COVID. And it was interesting, one of the things, like for med schools, they're really looking for clinical hours. And because COVID had happened, they really weren't able to get into the hospitals. But a lot of the med students get their CNA certificate, so they can work in the hospital and they can get that experience and they can build up to that. And so that is actually a really cool career and technical program that I do see. Same with vet tech, you know, there's welding, dental hygiene, there's so many. And if your school has those opportunities, they can be kind of fun, especially if you can do it during the summer. But career and technical programs can really be used really well within a strong academic program when done right. So in your extracurriculars, we've mentioned some of these already, but I just kind of wanted to show you some other opportunities, you know, working at Culver's, working at Tropical Smoothie, or babysitting. All of those things really count. It shows your work ethic, your persistence, that time management, you know, being involved in the community. It's important, especially when it's focused and it has a high community impact, right? So go back to the beach cleanup, really fun. It's a great time, but the impact isn't maybe as great as if you did a big fundraiser and went out and did some stuff. So again, think of longevity, your intensity, and so forth. Creative pursuits. Don't limit yourself to, again, things that are just at your high school. I was talking to a student just the other day who's going into mechanical engineering, and he has been coding drones and apps and games for a long time, and he took one AP class back his freshman year. And I said, that can go on your resume, talking about your C++ and your Java and all the coding languages that you know. Explore that. Or if you're doing film or video animation, explore what resources and tools. And so use, with the internet and YouTube and everything else, the sky is really the limit for that exploration. And we're seeing more and more students having, sometimes I worked at a college for several years, and it was interesting, especially in the coding classes, we would see some 16-year-old kids coming in knowing more than the professor at times, because you guys know all the tricks and get around stuff. And I had one kid that he just kept butting heads with the professor, and it really came down to the professor was mad because the kid knew more than he did. So that's really, so feel free, explore, listen to podcasts, you know, YouTube stations, whatever, but definitely explore, use your individuality there. If they can be major specifics, career focused, specific content, even better. We talked about school, clubs, and activities, you know, your longevity, your school spirit, your leadership as well. So let me give you an example of just a student. This is an actual student I'm working with. So the student started interested in sort of medicine, kind of thinking about, you know, something in the medical field, research maybe, and they started taking as early as middle school some advanced math and science. And one of the first classes the student had completed, she went to Coursera as a middle school student and actually took the class Understanding the Brain, Neurobiology for Everyday Life from the University of Chicago, which actually got her on to really enjoying public health. And she ended up being, it's a pretty small school, so she became a key member, a key club member, and then eventually worked her way up to lieutenant governor and is now elected at a state position. And one of the things the student did is, because her school, even though it's a rigorous school, they're pretty broad in just biology or chemistry, and she wanted a little bit more specific. So she started to follow different podcasts, different listservs, research sites, different programs like the CDC, and really started honing in on her desire to go into public health and really into epidemiology and really looking at viruses and their impact and what they're doing. So that was where she started discovering, what do I want to do? Then she continued with developing really those skills. She took on advanced college level science, math, and writing. She attended summer programs in her career pathway. CP means career pathways, through the CDC and Johns Hopkins. She also looked at some classes by combining a school research project, and she connected with a program in Nicaragua where she used to live as an elementary student. And she actually took that research project she had to do for a class and partnered with somebody in Nicaragua to actually do a research study opportunity in her career pathway. She then connected with professors and teachers that she had on other school-based projects that they were doing in research. She joined the honors program, and she also focused on, as a 10th and 11th grader, her PSAT and her SAT score. She just got done with the fantastic PSAT class that Evan, one of our amazing tutors, had just given, the 18-hour PSAT class to get them ready, because she wants to be a national merit finalist. And now, one of the things that she's doing, starting as early as 9th grade, is she's working on that resume, she's crafting it. So whenever these projects come up, like a research project or a study abroad or whatever it may be, her resume's done. She knows what it is, she can do it. And she also has letters of recommendation already in her pocket. So any opportunity, honors program, anything that she has, instead of always being behind and looking for them, she has them, and she has the teachers update them every year. And if she gets a stronger teacher or stronger, then she changes out the old letter of recommendation and uses the new letter of recommendation. And then also she is also starting to hone in on her supplementals and her essays, thinking about what's kind of this U factor, how do I write about it, where do I use my letters of recommendation to talk about some of these things, where can I use my supplementals and my essays. So I'm really demonstrating that entire package when I am applying to colleges. So lots of open questions still. Let's see. Oh, I think I was looking at the chat and not the questions. I am sorry. I'm like, where's all my questions? Sorry about that, Brian. Brian's like, there's lots of questions. I was looking at the chat. I was not looking at that. So, so let me just show you. So I'm going to just stop there and I'm going to answer some questions. It looks like, Brian, you have been busy. I am so sorry. Can you repeat the survey, download documents? So one of the things in your handouts that I did create for you, I created a little worksheet, and we will be sending this out as well. But the worksheet will help you sort of work through some of these things, and you can, let's see if I can, I had it here, and I believe if I can bring it up. Brian, can you see my worksheet? Yes?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So this worksheet is in the downloads, and you can see I have the 3 Ds up here: your discover, develop, and demonstrate. I gave you some notes even. So I gave you some ideas, some sections here on your academics and extracurricular. So this whole space on this kind of chart is for you to take some notes. So what are some academics that you're taking? Maybe circle some things that are rigorous. What are some outside courses that you might want to take? Same with extracurriculars. Really think about it and think about my time and my energy. Where am I spending that? And then the page 2, I have you ask a few more questions. I think it's so critical to use your I call it your college support network. That could be your school counselor, it could be a teacher, it could be a college advisor like myself, but who are you tapping into to really help you develop, discover, develop, and demonstrate your sort of U factor and what you're doing, and really keeping an eye on the prize, right? What's your academic goals? What are your professional goals? Maybe there's some great resources. And then I gave you a little sheet here of maybe circle, where do you think you're strong right now? You could even rate yourself on a 1 to 5. That's completely up to you. But where are you kind of at in all of these things right now? Do you feel like there's some areas that you might want to focus on in the next year or to talk about? And then I just gave you some sort of opportunities to kind of, where are you in the discovering? And again, if your academics and extracurriculars can be somewhat similar, that's even better. But it's okay to have a passion that's completely separate from your career pathway. But if you can, more bang for your buck, like I was telling you about the one student with the research, she used her class to do a research project, got that submitted. And so she's using the resources and the things available. So that is in under your handout. So you can download that. It's just a fun little sheet. I thought that might be helpful for you to expand your thinking. And then if you do join the class, which I really hope you do, again, that's so reasonable and going to be such a wealth of information to know. And we're actually going to go over your resume and your portfolio. More and more colleges are actually having you submit videos. And especially with the AI stuff that's going on right now, I think this next year is going to be a big change for that. More videos being submitted. And that's one of the things that we're actually going to go over, is I get to help you look at your resume, make sure it's as impressive and has everything on there that we want. We're going to be talking about test scores. We're going to be diving into the college search process. We're going to be really talking about these essential skills you need and what colleges are looking for. So that actually starts August 20th. And I will say, normally it's over $500 tonight, and up until the day that before the class starts, it's half off just for all of you fantastic NSHSS students. So let's get over to some questions here. Oh, I lost my questions. Come back. Come back. Sorry, I lose my stuff. Oh, there we go. Okay, I see where it went. There we go. There's too many little boxes here. So Mikaline, I think is your name, you said, what if we don't know what we're majoring in or what to go? Then this is a really great opportunity to start doing that discover, right? One of my favorite I love personality tests. My background is I'm a counselor, and I love little career, and I actually taught career theory for graduate students at Florida Gulf Coast University. And ONET. So ONET, it's not a pretty site at all. It's actually a government-based site, but ONET has a really cool little search tool and a really great career tool. So if you're interested in something, it'll tell you like how much you're gonna make, how many years do you need, what skills do you need. So if you don't know, that's okay. Talk to people, use your college support network, use your extracurriculars, use the things around you to start kind of honing in on that. So that's where that discover really comes in. So it's a fantastic question. Thank you. Do you have an in-person meeting? Yes. So we have some families really like just to sit down with me to come up with a plan and to go through it all and what do I need to do right now. And so then that's where some do buy additional packages to do the one-on-one sort of individual packages, anywhere from 5, 10, 20 sessions, whatever is needed for that student. So we do have that opportunity. A lot of people, the handout pain. Hopefully, Brian, you got that figured out. I see a lot of questions there. Let me see. So one of the questions is, what is the difference between AP and honors to your college application? Mindy, that was a really great question. So colleges both see them as rigorous courses, but typically when it's a college level course like a dual enrollment class, AP, IB, Cambridge A's, they give it more points because most colleges do something called a recalculated GPA. And the more college rigor courses you take, the more points you get. So like down here in Florida, it's a 1.0 higher and it's a half point for honors. So they actually do give you more weight for a college preparatory course than a regular honors courses. But you know, the honors courses can still be a fantastic opportunity to do that. So that, Mindy, thank you for that question. I know it was a little bit a while ago. Is it okay if my high school doesn't have AP, IB? Yes, that's okay. You know, again, your school might not have all those opportunities for you, but there are tons of opportunities out there. So I would really look at Coursera. Another great program I like to use is modernstates.org. And modernstates.org allows you to take AP and CLEP exams outside of your high school. I know my daughter, for example, had a really strong history teacher in early high school, and so she actually CLEP'd her government class and now has the college credit for it. So there's a lot of opportunities there. So definitely, Kevin, explore what you have available to you and what's outside of the box. Don't just go to your counselor and be like, oh, well, I can't take this class. Where there's a will, there's a way. There's always somewhere to get around that. I think we have some good, I'm just kind of scroll down and I'm going to answer these too if I know I'm not going to get to all of them. Gianna had a great question about where can I find the recordings of previous webinars, and it looks like Brian, you did give her that information. And if you just go under the methodlearning.com and go under resources, all of my stuff is right there. Here's a question. Can you please, can you please link the QR code to see how each school ranks these factors? So Brittany asked about, I think you're talking about the common data set. That's not a QR code. So you actually, unfortunately for the common data set, you're not gonna find it in one location. You're gonna Google, you really just Google the name of your college that you're looking at, type in also common data set, and then look for the most current common data set. And it's a huge document. There's like 20 pages, and you're going to go to C7, and then that is where that information is at as well. So let me just kind of scroll down. Brian answered that question. What if, Chirachi, I want to make sure I say that right. What if you changed your major and your activities are different than that major? then that's okay. You know, you're 16, you're 17, so majors are going to change. So that definitely does happen. So one of the things maybe that could be part of your essay or in your letters of recommendation, if something is a pretty drastic shift, 90-degree shift, or you went somewhere else, that would be maybe a great opportunity for one of your recommenders, or like I said, your essay, you could sort of talk about that change and what is going on there. So let me just kind of keep scrolling here. If I'm interested in medicine, does that mean I shouldn't be a part of other things not relating? I'm president, model UN, captain of debate. No, that's not what I'm saying, because that has some really unique skills, you know, with leadership and communication and analysis and research. No, absolutely, that longevity and that sort of passion. You know, what I'm saying is you just want to make sure that within your application, like your academics, I would expect to see some advanced mathematics. I would expect to see some advanced biology and chemistry courses. And if you don't have those at your school, then, you know, one of the things you could look at is volunteering at your local hospital, maybe taking a Coursera class, or looking for a local university that has a summer camp where you can go and do sort of a pre-med course. So there's lots of different opportunities. And so again, they're looking for those leadership opportunities. They're looking for a wide range of skills. You just want to make sure that you're also exploring your career aspects as well. So there's lots of different ways to do that. So that was a really great question. Thanks for answering. I know I'm not getting to all these. So sorry, there's so many. Okay, so one of this, Harish asked me a question. I have a friend who is in a rigorous coursework full of AP, honors, dual credit, but ended up getting a C in one class for a semester in junior year. Is due to extenuating circumstance. Is he screwed? He's in senior year and is nervous. Depends on the school, right? And it really depends on what their circumstance is. So maybe that circumstance, there is a place in your common application you can talk about if you have an extenuating circumstance that you want to explain or share a little bit more. Or I might tap into my letters of recommendation, maybe a school counselor, maybe your teacher, and they can sort of shed light onto that and what happened. So a lot of times it's just a blip, you know, and it's a learning tool. Not saying he's screwed at all. Everyone looks at things, you know, and maybe some of us, one of my former bosses, he was a principal of a school, and he said, I wanted to be chemical engineering until I couldn't pass organic chem or something like that. And he was like, yeah, I realized like there's just classes or things that we take that we're like, maybe I'm not going to go that way. Maybe I need to go that way. So that could be just a life lesson. And but if it looks like it was pretty blatant, it would be something that I would include, whether it be, like I said, on the essay, on the letters of recommendation, or in that extenuating circumstance to explain. They used to have the COVID question, like how did COVID affect your education? And I think they still have it up until this year. So that's another way that you could definitely explain this. I think, thank you. No matter how much prep is done, I won't be able. Okay, so I'm reading Matthew. He was just talking about some of the issues he's having about test scores. And it's just sometimes hard for us, you know, even though we study, even though we go through it, it is difficult that I'm just not getting the score. And so that's a really critical thing, that if you feel there's, again, a huge gap, that this is my workload, this is, you can see it on my grades, you can see what I'm doing, you know, using those documents to demonstrate that success is just really critical. And so maybe that's something you write your essay on, or maybe you do look at test optional colleges, and you look at schools that really believe in that holistic. But I'd be careful. So I get a lot of this where students say, okay, I want to go to, you know, I'm not a great test taker, but yet I'm going to go to a huge university that most of my first year classes are 300 plus. I will tell you, in a 300 plus university big lecture hall, it's going to be a midterm and a final. They're not going to ask you essays or worksheets or projects or things like that. So do pay attention to what your learning style is. And if your learning style is not test focused, then really look for universities that match your learning style. So that really, if they're truly test optional and they care about you holistically, then that school is probably going to be more likely to fit you as a student. So just keep that in mind, because I do get that question a lot. And then these kids want to go to these huge schools that do a lot of testing because they're just really large their first year or two, and they struggle. And I will say right now, unfortunately, out of everyone that starts a four-year degree, right now, only 41% of students are actually graduating college in 4 years. So 59% are either dropping out completely or they're not finishing. And so, I really want all of you to be in the 41%. So choosing the right college that matches who you are so you can be super successful is really, really critical. So that was a great question. Thank you, Matthew, for answering that. I think, oh my goodness, there's so many questions. At my current rate, this is from Michael. At my current rate, I'll only need to take 3 classes my senior year. Will this look bad on my college resume? Should I take additional classes? Yes, that does look bad. I totally get it, Michael. When you start kind of adding up and say you need 24 credits, and when you add up, I've taken 8 every year. I need that other math class, that English class, and usually government economics is kind of your senior year. What they're looking for is they're looking for that rigor, remember? And they want to see, instead of 4 math classes, you took 5, or if you took 3 science, you take 4. So having that additional core classes, especially math, science, English, social science, foreign language as well, is really critical. If you feel like, I kind of want a unique schedule, then see if there's maybe a career opportunity to go do an internship, or to to go do something different, maybe get a certificate at your local community college or wherever that may be. So if you can get a head start on some college courses even, that's really great. But just doing 3 classes, they really want to see, again, that projection of coursework. And so, freshman year, you probably only have 1 or 2 honors, and then you kind of build up. So just all of a sudden going like this and then dropping down, that's not going to look great for your senior year. So you definitely want to balance that out and see if there's maybe some fun opportunities to maybe focus on your career pathways as well, while still getting some of those core classes. So don't shove in study hall and a bunch of underwater basket weaving and those things. You definitely want to have courses that are important and you're using and are actually doing. Okay, so that was a really great question, Michael. It's a common question, definitely for seniors. Perpetual says, how many times should I take the SAT? Is it 3 times advised? I am not the SAT, ACT expert. Brian and their team definitely is. But typically 3, because what will end up happening is that eventually you end up plateauing and there's only so much you can do. So traditionally, taking it sort of a little bit of prep, taking it, kind of seeing where you're at as, or maybe early sophomore, junior year is fantastic. That's where the PSAT really comes in. The second time, I really like doing as much prep as you can. So using like the methodized program, really jumping in, using some books, and really doing everything you can on your own. And then I really like that third time, which really should be, if you're going junior, senior year, should have been the summer. You can get in your August, September, but it is getting a little bit late. I did see a question about timing of the fall SAT and the fall ACT, and yeah, if you're submitting early, you're not going to have time to submit and do those late tests, and so it can hurt you. So then that third time, I would get a tutor, really hone in on exactly what you need, and that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, is when you actually you've had some practice, you've seen the test a few times, you know your weaknesses, and you're really able to get in there. And really, for a lot of students, I'll go back to the question about, hey, I'm not a great test taker, is you need to practice. Just like riding a bike, just like swimming or cooking or whatever it may be, you have to practice. Doing it 1, 2, or 3 times is not enough. You have to be in front of it, you have to listen to it, you have to do the practice test. And I would almost create like a testing environment where you go in, You make it like the test. You have your desk is empty with your little pen and paper and pencils, and actually set the timer and try to mimic that testing environment as much as possible. But you start getting 4, 5, 6 times, your score is really not going to change all that much. So really hone in, come up with a testing plan, and making sure that you don't miss an important test date is going to be really critical. How much did it cost to publish the book? Kava, that's a really great question. She self-published through Amazon, so it was very cheap. I mean, I think you put in like, it's like $50. She got an ISBN. They did everything for her, and cute little book. She actually illustrated it all by herself, and it was very, very minimal. Even my College on Maze book, we self-published because we wanted to really keep the cost down, and as we're working with families and schools and so forth, and then that way we can update it whenever we want. So the self-publishing route is a pretty cool route. You don't need to go through a giant publisher. It just depends on your goals and what you're doing, but yeah, very reasonable. If you have any questions, I love being an author and doing all that, so happy to help anyway there. What do you suggest a shy, this is from Lori, shy, quiet, etc. type of kid to do with their U factor? There's so much you can do at home, even if you're a gamer, even if, listening to podcasts, even listening to, if you're a true crime type of person, dive in, get excited, and there's a lot of different listservs and different organizations that you can follow and listen to. And maybe, Lori, one of the good things to do is to find a mentor or somebody in the space that your child is really passionate about and interested in, and that can kind of help pull them out of their shell just a little bit. So there's tons of things that you can do. Even church, church, temple, mosque, whatever you might have, those are all things that you can include. Playing guitar. I'm into fiber arts. I love crochet and weaving. It's kind of my go-to, and those are things that it's interesting, it's fun. So it doesn't always have to be academic related. It could be really something of a stress relief, but there are lots of ways that you can still connect with people, especially internet, right, that you can do that. But that's a great question, Lori. So you don't always have to be the most outgoing kid, but there are tons of resources out there that they can tap into. And I'll take a few more questions. I still got quite a few of you hanging out with me, so I don't mind. Yeah,
Amanda,
Brian.
there are quite a few questions about people wondering if they should apply early decision before they get additional scores back for their SAT or ACT, and go with the scores that they have, or prior to getting their score. So maybe if you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question, and that's a hard question, and that's where a lot of kids do get tripped up on that sort of early application, is you don't have the scores that you want right now. And so one of the things that I would do is definitely work with method, work on where are you testing at. So, we all have kind of an idea of what we would like to get, but in actuality, if you are not close to that and you're still taking some practice tests and you're not quite there, we do have to be realistic at the end of the day. But note that very few schools, especially the highly selective schools, once you submit, you've submitted, right? There are a few schools that you can get in your application first, and then you can submit your documents. So let's say you hit the priority deadline November 1, and you have until December 1 to get in all of your documents. But for most schools, a lot of them don't do that. So once you submit, you submit. So if you feel you're not ready and you don't have everything the way it should be, we do not want to hit the submit, because it really is kind of embarrassing to come back and say, and I've had students do it. I mean, we've had COVID and Hurricane Ian, and we've had a lot of stuff where kids just simply weren't able to test. And so they came back with a score later, and they asked for an additional review of their application. But I will say those were not from selective schools or highly selective schools. Those were more from probably your moderate, 50 to 100% acceptance rate, where they said, hey, now I have a new score. Can you please review this? So you do, if that's something you think you're going to be doing, and you're in that boat, definitely talk to admissions, okay? Talk to admissions, what their policy is on that, what their deadlines are for that, so that way you're making the best choice you possibly can when it comes to that. So I would not submit if you're not 100% ready with your application, including your test scores and your resume. And that's why that November 1 can be really hard for a lot of kids, because they're just not ready yet. So great question, Brian. Thank you for everyone that asked that question. Any other kind of common ones? I see so many. I'm so excited to type some of these out and send. Was there any other common ones you thought I should answer?
Yeah, there's a lot about people being confused, or not confused, but concerned about whether their extracurriculars are more important and should take precedence over rigor like AP classes and things like that. And also if their extracurriculars are not necessarily in line with what they may want to study in college.
Yeah.
Like any advice around that as well.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. You know, it's a balance, right? And what happens with a lot of different activities and things like that, they can be very consuming. But if I go back to that one of the very first slides that I showed you, the number one important factor are your grades, right? So your grades and what you did within that class. If you're not performing academically, it's harder. They would much rather you perform academically than take on so much that your grades suffer. So I do think grades, if you look at the data and you look at what's the most important, grades are critical. So it's not about the number of extracurricular activities. Again, it goes back to longevity and to what you're putting your time and energy. So they would much rather you have 2, 3, maybe 4 activities that you're really passionate about and that you commit to, versus 10 and then your grades are suffering. So always go with rigor and the grades first, but you also don't want to, you know, live under a rock and not do anything, right? You still need to show those other skills. So choose wisely. You don't have to be everything to everybody. And it's perfectly fine to have extracurriculars that don't have a career connection, right? That's where those passions come in. That's where that creativity comes in. They want to see that uniqueness coming out and you exploring that. Like if you're going to go apply for a theater program, but you didn't do the theater program at your high school, that would cause me some concern. If you did your theater program at your community center and you did every play they had, that's okay, but it's still theater, right? And so you got to make sure there is some connection there, because you don't want to go, well, why didn't they do this if they had 4 years in high school and they didn't do it? And again, don't feel like some of your activities, you know, I had a student that was getting his pilot license. That can be an activity listed on your on your resume. If you sing in your church's choir, if you babysit, those items, even though you might not get paid for it, it's not sanctioned by your school, they can still be listed on your activity page. And so I do think a lot of students minimize some of the things that they do because they think it only can be big things that I do with my school. And there are so many things that you can do outside of school that do count towards your resume. So hopefully that answered your question. That was a really good question. Thank you. Any other questions? I know there's a lot. You guys are
there are also quite a few about dual enrollment and college credit.
All right. Well, we are actually, Brian, that's a great segue. We are going to be doing another webinar. We were just talking about it today and finalizing. So I didn't quite have the name and the description. It's coming up in October. I am, I don't want to say an expert guru. I don't know. I love college credit in high school. Like it's like one of my favorite things. And it's something I really specialize in. And so, knowing how a college is going to use your dual enrollment credits, your AP, your IB, your ACE, whatever program you're using is really critical. So I live in the state of Florida, and if we have a state law that any dual enrollment or credit by examination, a passing score has to be the exact college credit at the college side. So it's very easy for students to line up their high school schedule and know exactly what college credits they're going to get at the University of Florida or FSU or vice versa. Some other schools, we got to dig a little deeper and we have to know, like, how are they going to take my dual enrollment credits? And so those are really great questions starting early to talk to admissions about. If there's certain schools, I will say the more selective the school, the more they're not going to take anybody's credit. So they don't care, but it's what got you in those programs, and that rigor is what gets you into the programs. They just don't accept them as college credit. Others within their college catalog will have a list. If you take an IB class and it's economics, this is the exact economics class that you'll get from us. Or if you take college algebra, this is your exact, and vice versa. So there's some really cool things that you can do that you're actually not only doing high school planning, but you're also doing college planning, which is really cool. If you can save time and money and energy by taking the class once, do it, because that will get you into internships sooner, study abroad sooner. So we're going to dive into that. So we'll definitely send an email out to all of you once we have that finalized. I think it's what, October 24th, I think. I think that's the date, but I will send that out. Don't hold me on that date. And we will be specifically talking about dual enrollment, all those college credit programs within high school. It's a great question. Oh my goodness, we still got a lot of people on, still asking questions. So many, I love this. Let's see, let's pick 2 more questions, and then it's getting late. I want to make sure to be cognizant of everybody's time. So Sophia asked just a few minutes ago, do you recommend any specific college search websites? That's a really great question. One of the ones that I use the most, and we actually use in our book, College Amazed, is the College Navigator. So the College Navigator, Princeton Review, Big Future, we're all pulling from the same data source. It's called IPEDS, and it's just how they present it. So College Navigator is not pretty. It's a government site, so it's a little basic. And so but it has tons of information. You just kind of have to read through it a little bit. But that is the most comprehensive site that you have. But all the other ones are pulling from the same data. The problem is, like Big Future, you really don't get that much information, and it's pretty basic. The other thing I like to do, Sophia, you asked, use ChatGPT. So I know that sounds, but using AI, because all those websites use a big database, a big Excel sheet that they're pulling all this data in these schools from. What I like about using AI and ChatGPT is you can ask it more questions, more specific kind of website questions about student services. You can ask it about extracurriculars and clubs. And so you get a very different list because they're pulling from different information. So one thing that I've been sort of hacking a little bit is going into, because there's over 2,800 four-year universities. So I'm not even going to know all of them. I know a lot. I know, probably about 2,000 of them. But I like to go there and ask some questions and see if I'm on the right path. And you can even ask it to give you links and stuff like that. And so use AI. ChatGPT is a fun new one that you can get your hands onto. One more question. I see Christy says, how do I keep track of college credits acquired from MOOCs like Coursera? That's a great question. And that's going to be a question for, like, if you're getting college credit, you will be getting a transcript from that college. And on your Common App, it will ask, which high school and which colleges have you received credit from, like where are transcripts coming from. So you will actually list that on the Common App. If you don't actually get college credit, but maybe you get a certificate or a completion or something like that, you could add it as an activity as well. So it just kind of depends on if you get credit for it or if it's just an activity builder. But that is where on your resume or within the application by listing it as a college is where you can showcase some of that, and you can send in that transcript to that university. Brian, last question. Do you have a burning question that somebody is asking?
Yeah, there's still quite a few.
I love it. I love
Well,
it.
you know what? Here, we'll do this. We'll at this point, I think it's best to kind of answer what a lot of people have been asking about as far as the handouts. Apparently, depending on what platform you're on, whether it's mobile or if you're on a laptop or a computer, there might be some differences in where the handouts are. So if you do not see the handouts currently, we will make sure that we send them out to everybody. If you're not finding them, you could send us an email with a request to collegeadvisor@methodlearning.com, and we'll reply with the handouts for you. And then also the recording. A bunch of people have asked about the recording, so you will get a recording in the next 24 hours. You'll get an email with the recording from the session, so you'll get that. Those are kind of the biggest leftover ones right now, and the rest we'll kind of go through and try to respond to via email.
Awesome. And I did see one other person asked about the code. So if you want the code to get in the class, we can start talking about this. We can dive into your information and use that. You get a 60-minute conversation just with me, even by doing the starter package. Use the code STARTER. So use the QR code, type in the word STARTER, and get that package up and going. I would love to see everybody. Again, if you are a senior out there and you want help with your documents, your resume, we review it, we talk about it, we make sure it's perfect, your essay, your supplementals, your letters of everything, all of your sort of how you demonstrate your U factor, we can help you with that. So we do have space. We are still taking on some more seniors. So definitely contact me ASAP because we don't want to spend, we don't want to waste any more time to do that. And I would love to work with you guys. So fantastic, Brian. Wow, what a great webinar tonight. All of you and your questions. It's going to be, I can't wait to go back through and follow up with a lot of you on these questions, but keep them coming. Amanda@methodlearning.com. You can just email me directly. Excited and really excited to be working with hopefully all of you very, very soon. And Brian, thank you for a wonderful evening. My goodness, we always say we're going to end early, but these questions just keep on coming. What great kids. I love this.
Yeah, lots of interest. This was awesome. You guys were an amazing audience, and we're really excited to keep this community going. So please look out for future events. We'll be sure to be in touch, and you'll receive emails from us. Make sure that you share this again with other people. The more people that we can get involved, the better. Sorry if we weren't able to get directly to your question during the session tonight, but like I said, we'll do our best to make sure that we answer everything that we can. And thank you for your participation. It was really, really fun.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Talk to you all soon.